Today I have 3 parcels. This is the first one. I'm going to go from smallest to largest. So this little parcel, it came from Scrapbook Cottage, which is actually, I think it's an Australian business. Not 100% sure, but anyway, let's open it up. So these, let me get them out. So these are Dina Wakley mixed media brushes, and I've been using these for a long time, but I've never had one as big as this. So this is the size 2, and it looks like it's about 2 inches, I would say, and it's a big fat brush. So I'm excited about using that for bigger areas of color. And one of the things that I am wanting to get back into this year is painting big canvases. So this would be a great sized brush for working on a larger format. So I wanted to try that. And I've also got a smaller pack. So this pack here has the size 1, 3/4 inch, and a couple of the smaller round brushes. And these brushes are excellent for using in sketchbooks or on smaller pieces of work. I really like these brushes because they are firm bristles. So they are perfect for pushing around heavier bodied paint. If I want to use something like a fluid acrylic or make a glaze using a fluid medium, I tend to use silkier, softer brushes. But for the heavy bodied paint, I really like these. You can scrub into the paper and push that paint around, and it's very robust, like it'll push the paint easily, whereas a softer brush will kind of get stuck. So I'm not sure if I described that very well, but I certainly enjoy these brushes and I have used them for many years now. So this is a product that I'm restocking, but I'm trying a larger size. I also haven't used the 1.5 inch before, so I have no doubt that these will be excellent. So let's put these to the side and open up the next box. All right, so this one comes from Adamstown Art, so it's an Australian art supply store. I wasn't sure about the Scrapbook Cottage, which is where I got the brushes from, whether that was Australian, but it is. And the reason I wasn't sure was because I've been trying to get the Dina Wakley brushes for a while, and they're not in many places, so I had to hunt around and find a supplier. They might be more easy to access in the US, not 100% sure. Right, what's in this one? I ordered this one a while ago now. So most of my art supplies I order through online retailers here in Australia, but almost all of the supplies you will be able to get at places like Blick or Jackson's Art if you live in the US or the UK or somewhere like that. And I use a mixture of brands, particularly with paint. You know, I've experimented with many different paint brands, and there are different colours that I like from different companies. So I have some golden heavy-bodied paints in here, and of all the paint brands I use, golden is the one I always come back to for that very buttery, smooth, creamy texture. To me, it's almost that perfect middle ground between something more fluid versus something that's very heavy, like an impasto paint. It just sits in the middle there and is very easy to thin out or thicken, you know, using mediums. And the pigment load, I'm just looking down at the colours and seeing these little swatches that they do on the front of the tube. The pigments are so intense with golden. I feel like they have one of the highest pigment loads of any acrylic paint brand. So you only need a small amount of paint. So while they might be a bit pricier than some of the brands, you won't use them up as quickly. So that's one of the reasons that I enjoy golden paints. Another thing is that I love the way that they label their tubes. because you get all of the information. The way that they put this little test strip on the front is brilliant, and I don't know any other brand that does that, because it shows you how transparent or opaque the paint is. And so with these two paints, you can see that the Naphtha red light is quite transparent because you can see the little black lines poking through, whereas the dioxazine purple is a more opaque colour. And this is really useful information to know when you are choosing paints for different purposes as you work. It also tells you what pigments are being used for the colours, and that's really clear. And I find that helpful, particularly with mixed colours where there are more than one pigment, because I can look at what pigments are in the colour and I can mix that colour myself if I have those single pigments. So it can save you from having to buy a mixed colour if you already have the pigments available. So maybe one day I'll make another video where I go through that in more depth, because it can help you with your colour mixing. And what else does it have? It tells you the series on the paint. So the series relates to how rare or difficult it is to obtain the pigment, and the higher the series, the more difficult, which equals a more expensive pigment. So this one here is a series 6, which means it's more pricey. It's a more expensive pigment, whereas something like a burnt sienna is usually lower down the list and is a more cheap. Not sure if that's the way you say it. It's less expensive. So anyway, here I have a couple of colours, Naphtha red light and dioxazine purple. Let's see what other colours I have. Some of them are labelled a little bit differently, but this one here is an example of a mixture, Titan Buff, and then if you look on the back, it'll tell you the pigments that are used. So there's 2 pigments, and you can look those up. Sometimes I go onto the internet and Google what that pigment is if I can't remember, and then I would know how to mix this colour. So that's a useful thing to do to increase your colour knowledge. These colours are mostly a restock of colours that I've run out of, and I'm keeping these ones in my home studio. So they're fairly small tubes, whereas in my other studio where I will be painting bigger pieces, I will start investing in the larger size, so bigger tubs of paint. But at the moment, what I want to do is test out Golden paint versus a few other brands before I make that decision around what paints I want to get a larger size of. So I'm going back to testing out all my paint brands that I've used over the years to see which one's my favourite. So let's have a look. What else do I have here? I have a couple of Golden fluid acrylics, and these are much more runny, a thinner paint. So this is the Heavy-Bodied, and this is quite thin. It's not as thin as ink, but it's just a little bit, what's the texture? It's like cream, like a pouring cream. So I have the colours here, Anthraquinone Blue and also dioxazine purple. I really love this Anthraquinone Blue. It is a series 7, so it is a more expensive pigment, but I really enjoy the colour and the way it mixes and combines with yellows and other primary colours. Okay, so that's all Golden paint. Let's put that to the side and have a look at this. So this was a bit of a splurge. I decided after many years of mostly using Daniel Smith watercolours that it would be fun and interesting to try a different brand. So I've decided to give the Schmincke watercolours a try, and I've bought myself a palette of 24 half pans. And I also wanted a very convenient palette. So rather than tubes of watercolour, to buy a palette that already had pans in it, ready to go, that would be good for travel or doing work on the dining room table or at home. So I wanted something simple, easy to transport, a nice size, but with a decent colour range as well. And I have seen many artists using this particular set. So I thought, well, you know, I'll trust in that and give it a go. So let's have a look. I have it upside down. There we are, Schmincke. So it's a really nice, sturdy tin that it comes in. So it's not plastic, and it has, you know, your little mixing area. And then you have all the little half pans here. So what I know about the Schmincke colours is that they are very vibrant and they are a little less granulating than Daniel Smith. So Daniel Smith is really well known for granulation, which is the textures that you get. So it has those interesting variations, and a lot of the paints are made out of minerals and things like that. And they also have paints that split, so they might split into two colours. I'm thinking of Cascade Green, which is made with a blue and a green pigment and bits of yellow. So there are exciting effects with the Daniel Smith paints. These ones are a little bit more smooth and super bright. The colours are vibrant. So I'm interested to try these out and see how they compare to the Daniel Smiths that I normally use. And yeah, so that's that set. And when I've given them a bit of a go, I'll come back to you and let you know what I think. So I have one last box to share with you, and this is very exciting because this box was sent out to me complimentary from the brand Chroma. So I didn't pay for this, so that's exciting. I will be doing a review on these paints, but for now I'd just like to unbox them and see what's in there. So Chroma is an Australian brand, and I have used some of these paints before. So there are some ones that I'm familiar with, but also a new set, which is matte. And I haven't tried them, so I am looking forward to testing them out because it would be great to have a matte set of paints, particularly for working in my sketchbook, because then the pages don't stick together as much. And they're also really good for mixed media because it's easier to draw over the top with pencils and crayons and things like that. So let's take a look. I'm trying to work out how I'm going to do this because I have so much stuff here. Let's open the set. So this is the set that the company has sent me out to try and do a review on. So this is the Sonya Matte Flow Acrylics. So I've never used these before, and I'll be trying them out in my sketchbooks. Trying to figure out how to open it. It's got these sticky things on the side. It's not often that I would buy a full set of paints like this. I'm more of a pick and choose kind of person, but I'm very excited. Look at that, it's exciting. They're a small size, so 20 millimeters in each tube, and what a gorgeous color range. We've got some interesting ones here. So there's brushed copper, silver, and gold. I haven't used any metallic paint in acrylic form for a while. There's a nice bisque colour here, so a nice creamy colour, and all your usual, your standard colours like ultramarine blue, phthalo green, naphtha red light, so you can do all the mixing that you want to do. There's not much more I want to say about these as yet because I haven't tried them out, but they are matte. They're a flow consistency, so that's a little bit looser than a heavy-bodied paint, but not as runny as a fluid paint. So I have used the flow consistency in other brands and I really like it. I really like paint that is a little bit towards the fluid side of the spectrum rather than really thick impasto paint. So I think the consistency will work well for me. And the matte, well, I don't know yet because I haven't got much experience working with matte paints. So that is going to be very interesting. So let's just quickly have a look at what else they sent me. I believe that these are Atelier interactive acrylic paints. And I used to use these quite a lot, and I switched over to Golden because this is an Australian brand and a lot of you I know are not in Australia. And so I switched over to Golden as a more universal kind of brand and easier for people to pick up in their local stores. But Atelier Interactive was actually the first paint brand that I ever used. So it's going to be quite nostalgic in a way to come back to using this paint. The tubes are really big. Are they bigger than Golden? Yeah, they are. They're 80 mils. So that feels really generous. I'll just take out some more colours. So there is something interesting about Atelier Interactive paint, and that is It has this unique formula. They say on here, unlockable formula. And what that means is that you can reactivate it with water. And you can give it a bit of a spritz even after you've left it for a while, and it reactivates just a little bit so that you can continue to blend and work. So here in Australia, where the climate is very dry and acrylic paints dry out so fast, this can be a great way to just have a little bit more workability with your paint. And that's one of the reasons that I was interested in the brand in the first place. So I want to come back, and now that I've used some other paint brands, I'm doing this wrong again. Now that I've used more paint brands, to see how it compares to things like Liquitex, Golden, and other brands that I use. I have a feeling that I might fall back in love with these. I'm just looking at them and remembering, it's bringing back some nice memories of painting big canvases and things like that. Bear with me, I'm just going to open them all up. So what they've sent me is a really good mixing range of colours. So you're going to have a lot of the standards, like the cadmium red. They've sent me 2 tubes of each as well. They must know that I want to get back into painting big and I need more paint. Because for the past year or two, I've been doing a lot of small work and a lot of watercolour work and small sketchbook work. So I haven't been going through as much acrylic paint as I used to, but oh my gosh, back when I was painting big canvases, I was going through like big, massive tubs of paint, especially white paint. There's no excuses now. I have to do a lot of painting. I'm looking at all this paint and realising that this needs to get used up. I can't just sit on my desk and gather dust. So this is the motivation, to paint some big pieces. So this is great. It's essentially a split primary palette. So you've got a cool yellow, a warm yellow, you've got a cool red, a warm red, you've got a warm blue and a cool blue, and then some earth tones. So we've got burnt sienna, which is one of my all-time favourite colours. Red gold, I haven't used this in a long time, but I did used to use this a lot when I was doing earthy acrylic work. And my old favourite, Phthalo Green. Phthalo Green is such a bright, unnatural looking green, but when you mix it with burnt sienna or cadmium red or any of the warmer tones, red gold, you're going to get interesting greens, khaki greens and things that are a lot more natural. So Phthalo Green is the main green that I use to create a whole variety of different green shades. I'm just thinking, is there anything else I want to say about this paint before I sign off? This has been a very paint-focused unboxing. Pretty much all acrylic paints, but it's not. There's 3 different types of acrylic paint, 1 watercolour set and a set of brushes. And the brushes I would use with the acrylic paint. The watercolour I will use with my usual brushes, which are the Princeton Neptune brushes. But I feel like this year I'm going to test out some other brushes as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and as I said to you, I will come back and talk more about all of these things once I've given them a go and put them through their paces.